Join me today on this episode of Rebranding Motherhood with Dr. Kara Schulte, pediatric physical therapist, mother of young boys, and a coach. She talks about her coaching philosophy, what it means to be in physical therapy from both a physical standpoint, a therapeutic standpoint. She breaks it all down for us. Kara is phenomenally principled. She's deeply caring about her community, about the kids she coaches, and about helping parents raise happy, active, healthy kids. You're going to want to stick around for this because we talk a lot about what you can do this summer to get your kids active out there, meeting milestones and rites of passages, and having just a good old fashioned Americana summer. Dr. Kara Schulte, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, not seeing you just in the carpool line or at basketball practice with our
I
kids.
know. It is weird to be in this setting. We're professional. So it's great to see you. And thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Start with telling us a bit about your professional history, how you got into physical therapy.
I was inspired when I was probably middle school age about what physical therapy even was because my grandpa had a hip replacement, a knee replacement, a lot of different things. And so the therapist would come to the house and I happened to be over there and I would see how she helped him do something that he wasn't previously doing. He's able to get up and down from the chair, walk into the kitchen, just really make a lot of gains. And she had this rapport with him. She knew about his grandkids. She knew about, the Cleveland teams he followed. I just loved the back and forth that they had. So ever since then, I really wanted to do a job that I could help people be functional and do something that they weren't previously doing. And then I like science, I like math. It kind of just worked its way out. And then I went to undergrad at the University of Toledo for exercise science and then made my way to Ohio State, go Buckeyes, for grad school. And from there, lots of internships and lots of different things I had to do to get the doctorate degree. And that's where I kind of realized I thought I wanted to be in sports, but then it turned out kids are way more resilient and they don't complain as much as adults and teenagers. I really fell in love with pediatric PT, which brought me to where I am now, owning my own practice and branching out and doing a lot of different things, not just PT, personal training and swimming and biking and just different avenues to go down where I think kids need help, but there's not a lot of people that teach those things. So I wanted to do something unique with my practice.
How long have you been in private practice?
I started my business, Simply Strong PT, in 2020 when COVID came because, of course, everything was shut down. And I had two under two at the time. So I wasn't working a lot anyway, but I was still working part time. And then they wanted me to come in. There was nobody to watch the kids. I didn't have that flexibility. My husband travels a lot for work. I just thought, man, if there a way I can just have these clients over to my house and we actually worked in the yard for a while, because we weren't going indoors and we were in the masks and all the things. So yeah, we started in 2020 in Austin, Texas, and I just had like one or two clients. And now we moved here to Charlotte and now I've just branched out and I'm able to take on more clients because the kids are in school now. And then I work some on the weekends and I can take them with me. The swim lessons are at the house and they come to the bike classes with me sometimes. So it's really flexible, which is great. And I also want them to see me working. Like I want them to see their mom, working hard and helping other people. And sometimes I put them to work as well. They're good at running and picking up cones and ladder drills and all those things. So yeah, started in 2020 and still kicking now in 2026.
It's grown, and you've
Yes, yes.
established in a new area too, because you moved to the Charlotte area, and you had to start from scratch. You do swimming lessons, you do bike riding camps. Tell us what kind of inspired starting the bike riding camps, because it used to be very typical rite of passage that a kid's parents or older siblings just taught them how to ride a bike. But we've seen a
Yes.
significant drop in kids' preparedness with skills like swimming and bike riding, especially.
My oldest son was 4 and we'd always been on scooters. We're always outside doing all the things. And I was like, all right, I think he's ready to ride. So I just put together a couple drills to do with him. And then it sort of caught on in my neighborhood. People would see me outside and they knew I was a physical therapist. So then a neighbor friend of ours was like, hey, can you teach my daughter? she has a lot of anxiety with it. And then it just branched out into maybe I could try this in a camp format to where there's a lot more social interaction. So the kids play tag games, they wait for each other to do a drill. They also cheer each other on, which I think is fantastic because a lot of times some of these kids that may be in biking, my bike camp, they're not in baseball, they're not in basketball, they're not in those kind of, youth sports. So this is a chance where they get to be a bike team and they get to work together to cheer on each other. So I love that component of it. So yeah, I kind of just started small with one person asking, and then I just snowballed from there. And I really branched into helping a lot of children with autism or, ADHD, or I've had kids with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, whatever it may be. Everybody deserves a chance to give this a try and have fun with it. So that was the framework from which I built the class on. And it's really just taken off. It was hard to leave Texas because I had a waiting list of like kids wanting to come. And then all of a sudden I said, oh, I'm moving. I'll still get text messages from people on moms groups in Austin that are looking for me, but sadly I'm not there anymore. So I think it's been great. It's unique. And I just love the idea that these kids are getting outside and they're riding a bike, which is, like you mentioned, a rite of passage, right? The freedom, the autonomy to be able to go, your parents are probably with you, but to be able to, feel the wind in your hair, and just make decisions, right? And learn about friendship and going places. And then the exercise component, strong core, coordination. I feel like it's just something that kids need to know, but also you should want to be able to do with your family and your friends. So I knew I had to put something together. And yeah, it's my favorite thing to do by far. And it has been the most successful for me over the past 6 years.
It reminds me so much of two things when of all people, my public policy professor at Georgetown, where we were meeting the one day and we agree on absolutely nothing. And she will actually laugh if she hears this because we agree on nothing. But the thing that bonded us to each other was she talked about whatever anybody in this class does, if they go into politics full time, if she works on Capitol Hill, so does her husband. They've got these very successful, brilliant political careers. But what she talked about most was being a mother of three kids. And she talked about the importance of whatever you do with what you learn in this class about civic engagement, about community building, please make that a component of your life no matter what, because it is up to us that we build our communities, right? And so we have to build into the kids, build into the parents, because sometimes you're helping that kid learn confidence, but it's the parent too that might not have known to get started, right? Or they might not have known what buttons to push. Or, I mean, your kids, they'll push your buttons right back. But when it's like other adult
Oh,
who just, yeah, it's their coach, they kind of are like, all right, I'm definitely gonna assimilate into this situation. And right? 'Cause it gets them together. And I always say everybody needs a Benny, like from the Sandlot. He kind of helps get it started, right? He
get the
just gets
team
on.
going. Yeah.
He's like, we understand you can't catch a baseball today. That doesn't have to be true in a couple weeks. So, going with this. And I think that's one of the most fascinating parts about how you've become so entrepreneurial with your profession. There's a lot of young women out there who want to say obtain skill sets or these degrees, these areas of expertise, but they're not sure how to integrate that into family life. And there's a lot of strict messaging around women, right? There's a lot of you can either be here or you can be here. I got nothing for you if you want to be both. And that's a little defeating for mothers, especially. Right. And so I'm a big fan of how you've been able to integrate all of that. So what you describe yourself as an athlete and a gym rat. So what started your love for sports? Is there a particular sport you loved growing up?
My family being as active as they were, and I could do a whole nother podcast about how, you set an example for your child. If the parents see the kids moving, they're going to be exercising. So my parents were always into sports, always outside. We were boating, anything that we can do to be outside as a family. And then I have an older brother. And if you have older brothers, you're trying to keep up, right? I'm trying to be in his snowball fight or like playing, basketball with him, do whatever he does. So I'm always trying to keep up with him. But then for me, it was really about the friendships that I developed with my friends growing up on the softball team, the basketball team, I meet these girls and it's so beautiful because we're still all friends today. Like we just booked a girls trip and that all started from, 8-year-old softball. And now we still communicate. So I love that aspect of sports so much. And then, I have the drive to just do it. Like I always want to win, whether I'm racing my husband up the stairs or like that's just an innate drive I think that I have. I always was involved in something and I wanted to be around other people that were doing sports as well and keeping myself busy, but also just for health reasons too. I knew what would happen, some of the kids when we got older in high school, the kids that weren't involved in things had, other issues outside of sports. So it keeps you busy. I mean, you don't have time to do some of the things that get you into trouble because, you got practice and you got games and you're also hanging out with other people that are like-minded in the same company as you. So yeah, I always just wanted to be involved in sports, and then my family just really influenced that on me in such a positive way. We tried everything. I was in baton, like, I'm not a baton girl, but apparently I was for, like, a
Right.
couple months, and my mom said I wasn't great at it, but she signed me up, baseball, track, anything I could really try, and that's what I would like parents to get across too, like, if they have an interest and you're able to take them to practice or able to get them involved, like, give it a go and support them actively, right? Like, when you go to their practice, don't be on your phone, cheer for them, watch them, take notes of what the coach is doing so you can practice at home. Just be a present parent when they're involved in anything, but especially sports, because they're not going to be good when they try, right? They're not going to naturally be able to throw, catch, run, all those things. So, practice with them at home in a fun way.
A sign of a healthy kid, a little kid, is
Yeah.
when they see their play as work.
Oh, yeah.
And it's you'll hear your little kids use it as an excuse, right? Oh, like the fight I had with my 2-year-old yesterday. Okay, it's time to go to the store. No, I'm playing, right? And it's actually very important because you normally take it very seriously. That's his form of work. That's his form of engagement. And you're right. I think mom watch this only lasts so long. Even though we hear it 100 times, it's important that we're there for it because mom watch this does very easily become mom, do you have a second? Mom, I need to talk to you about something. Mom, I'm not sure about this. Mom, what do you think about this? It's a very much a building block. And I'm in 100% agreement with you where I think however good or not good you are at sports or a particular sport or even being athletic, the idea of play in a family is so important to every single person, no matter how old they are. Because you play in your marriage, ideally.
Right.
You play intellectually with each other, you play spiritually, we always say we turn the Rubik's Cube. You're turning ideas in 100 different ways,
Yeah.
sometimes throwing anything on the wall to see if it sticks. You compete with the best ideas, see what wins out. It's phenomenally romantic in a marriage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And and that's our favorite date nights, right? My husband and I, we will pay the babysitter and we will just go on a walk. We will just walk out our front door and we'll
Right.
walk right back 4 hours later. And we walked like 10 miles. And because you're just talking the whole time, you're going over things, you're going through things. There's like an activity associated with it too,
Right.
right? And then your kids' play is so important because you're even sitting at the dinner table, you can play thought tools games, you can play word association games, you can play with ideas with each other. I knew I also grew up in a very athletic family. I grew up in a family of coaches. My sister was my coach. My dad was a football coach. And so it translated into a lot of other areas. And not that you play sports necessarily for this reason, but I always think it's a valid point to bring up is that something like over 90% of corporate executives played a varsity sport. And it
Yep.
does translate into other areas of life.
Yeah.
Not that you're necessarily signing kids up so that they become a corporate executive. What that should tell us is they know how to play in other areas. They know how to stay on the field and stick to something. They know how to
Right.
work with others. And like you, the relationships you form early on,
Yeah.
because you're also maintaining a very deep social contract, which your kids
Mhm.
need to see modeled. They do need to see
Oh,
that because we've become such a cancel culture. We've been such a throwaway culture. And so when you have ties that bind, and sports do help with that, joint activities do help with that, shared with a common goal, it all helps with that. You can continue to relate with each other on things. And it's even have you seen the movie Warrior?
no.
Okay. It's like an MMA fighting boxing movie. Well, anyways, it's very dysfunctional family. But my husband and I continue to return to that movie from time to time as almost this it's a grisly life lesson, but it's one that I think warrants observation from time to time. And it's this family that's been through the ringer. I mean, just horrible dysfunction. And what ultimately helps them relate to each other and helps them at least get to start talking is this shared love of this sport and this shared language that they did develop over the years so that they could start with orbiting each other, then start talking to each other, and then start working together. And they ultimately wind up in the ring together. And it's a very painful story, but I do stand by that. Even when you go through difficult things in relationships in a family, nobody knows exactly the direction their family's going to go in life. You can go through difficult things, but if you had things growing up that related you back to each other, if you had a shared game in front of you,
Yeah.
it can help reconcile deep wounds. And so I know it's we talk about sports and we talk about the levity of it and the beauty of it and the wind in your hair and all of that's so important. But I think it's a lot like parenting. You're building things that are a lot deeper than is on the surface. You leave the potential for a life dedicated to a common purpose. And I think it's just phenomenally important for families and for communities.
And one of my slogans is sports are more than sports. There's
Right.
so much more than are you scoring 20 points this season in basketball? Like, yeah, that's
Yep.
great, but man, the ups and downs in realizing you need to be resilient. There are some games when you're going to play terrible and you're not going to know like, "Hey, how do I fix this? What do I do?" But that also translates over to for me personally, I remember I got to college and I never really had been challenged too much academically in high school. Then I get to college and I have this professor, and it was just a really tough class, chemistry, and I was like, "What am I supposed to do?" And yes, it's not the same as being on the foul line when the game's on the line, but it's also like, "Hey, you can do this. You've done this before. You've been in the trenches. Things have been hard and
Right.
you persevered." And that's where I feel like I get a lot of children that their first inclination is, "I'm done. I'm gonna quit." The first hard bike session, I'm asking them to pedal and balance. They lose their balance, put their foot down. I can't do this. I can't do this. And that is probably a child who hasn't been outside, you know, trying to build a fort that crashes, right? And then you like, just keep trying, like do something else. My slogan's always, you can do hard things. Things are going to be hard, whether that's in school, on the field, riding a bike. It's going to be hard, but you have to just keep going. That it's going to be tough, but it's worth it, right? It's worth it to get to the end, to keep that drive. And you're going to have so many challenges as a society at whole, because I mean, and this is a whole nother thing about kids not playing outside very much. We're not giving them a lot of chances to be creative, to be able to physically run and chase somebody up and down. And that's what I do at a lot of my classes. It's just simple games. I've had kids that show up and they've never played tag and they're like 6 or 7. I don't think exercise with your child has to be this huge structured thing that you need to lay out, but just simple stuff, playing tag. I make my kids drag the trash cans up, like physically moving,
Right.
take the cans up, unload the groceries. We have a bunch of rocks, stack the rocks into a fort. All of that is physical movement that may be hard to do, and I'll watch them a little bit, but most of the time, I'm just letting them be independent and try
Yeah.
things. We're missing that a lot as parents. And that's one of the things that when the parents show up to classes, I'm like, this is going to be hard. They're going to cry, but like, we can do hard things. It's going to be fine. Yeah.
It's such a hedge. We can do hard things is such a hedge against two things we battle in our age of screens and in this digital parenting age we found ourselves in, and that's evasion and gratification. So the
Right.
instinct, I should say. So
Instant.
kids are used to evading challenges, and I don't think they've on purpose done that to themselves. I think their lives in a lot
Yep.
of our communities are set up for convenience. The instant gratification is because we are very often connected to devices, and I'm guilty. I work from my phone. My phone is permanently
Right.
attached to my we am working in communications chronically online, right? But it
Yeah.
is set up for a gratification to keep engagement running because using using these platforms is what keeps them running. So when kids are set up for evasion, you lose sight very often of the meaning of the challenge. Right? What
Right.
am I getting out of this? That's the gratification part of that. You have to it's such intricate work shifting that mindset and hedging sometimes just putting yourself as a coach, as a physical therapist, as a parent in between that which is so enticing, but ultimately not good for the person, and that which is so challenging, but will ultimately produce such great character.
Right. The
Right.
fact that for me, one of my favorite things about the job that I do is these children have a goal. It's to ride a bike, to swim, whatever it is. We work, we achieve it. Boom. Kids often, that kind of gets thrown by the wayside, like whether it's something handed to them. You wanted this for your birthday. Here, you get it, you get it, you get it. It's me, me, me. I'm going to get a lot of things. But in this sense, physically, I think making your child work to achieve a goal is just something they're going to remember and something they'll tap into next time when, they're trying something bigger. And not be afraid to fail. I think it was Sissy Goff, I think she's a clinical psychologist in Nashville. I'm not sure of her title, but she's written a lot of parenting books. One of her acronyms is fail, first attempt in learning. Yes. Like everybody is going to fail. If you're not failing, you're not learning. So you have to fail and then keep going. And it's tough for a lot of these kids because they're often used to just things are kind of just handed their way, or right, they just avoid in general something that's challenging. So I'd love for parents to just keep making their kids do hard things. Hard things are good for everybody. Adults too, right? Like try something new that you haven't done before to model for your kids. I haven't never played pickleball and now I'm like, all right, so I'm trying this. So now my kids are into it. Now we go as a family, to go to the park to play. So I just feel like they pick up on that drive that you're trying something, and they're going to take that on into adulthood. And it's just so important at a young age to set the tone and make them try hard things.
We're coming into summer break now.
Mm.
What would you say an active, healthy summer looks like for kids?
Summer is my favorite for sure because it's less structure but way more fun and we just have more time. Now my kids do go to a couple camps and things, but depending of the age of your child is if you can get them outside and we do a little bit of schoolwork, whether that is I have them use chalk outside in the driveway, we're doing math facts. Or, it's not just sitting inside doing a worksheet. And then we go on a scavenger hunt, to find things that are man-made versus natural, whatever it is. And then just getting outside, socializing with others, and just being a kid, which for me, growing up in Ohio, it was just carefree. I just felt like we had so much fun. We were out until my mom rang the bell, or somebody yelled at us to come in. So I try to create that for my own kids. Also, exercise is habitual at this point in our family. Everybody knows every day we need to be outside. So if my kids they get usually one show a day. So if they want to watch their show, better make sure the things are checked off. And I love a
Mhm.
list. Thank you to my mom who always made lists when I was a kid. And I thought they were so annoying, but now I make lists all the time. I have a list for my kids on a whiteboard and I will write, math facts on the chalk on the sidewalk, or I will do run up and down the driveway 10 times, 10 push-ups. I'll write workout stuff for them to do, and I'll watch them a little bit, but most of the time, they know I'm probably in the garage working out myself, so they know, "All right, now's our time. Mom's working out, I'm gonna work out." And then we'll do something fun as a family, right? Go for a bike ride. Just really trying to have that family time and cherish those moments we can be together, and we don't have, to wake up at 6:30 for school. So, for summer, less structure, but still doing those habits that we've set. Exercise is I just said this to another client. Exercise has got to be like brushing your teeth. Like,
Mhm.
we have to do it. No, it's not fun all the time. Get your steps in, get outside, move your body. God designed us to be moving. We have to take advantage of that, or else it'll really come back to bite you when you're older and your kids don't see that modeling by you.
I am stealing the whiteboard idea for sure.
Oh,
Something I started doing is because they're not like, they're all very young, so they're not working super independently yet, especially when we're homework, right? You've gotta be reading with someone, so I'm not getting climbed on like a jungle gym. If I'm reading or doing math or something with one kid up, this one, you have to dribble the silent basketball 20
yes.
times really
Yes.
well, right? Knees
Yes.
bent back, eyes up. And you have to do 10 push-ups. And then we'll switch like it's stations. So I'm stealing the whiteboard.
100%. And you'll notice too, when I have a whiteboard, then that escalates into something else. So one of my sons will be like, watch how far I can jump. Now they're in a jumping contest for the next 10 minutes. And I'm not even involved because I'm literally in my garage doing a workout. So, and then the dog's out there. Now we're throwing the ball to the dog. So something else has come out of it just based on the little bit of a structure I wrote. Love a
Right.
whiteboard. For your kids that can read, it's a little better if they can read it, of course. And it then escalates into something else positive. Nobody's asking for a snack because they're not seeing snacks and we're doing the board. So that takes away from being in the kitchen. Yeah. Use a whiteboard, everybody, please.
I'll use hieroglyphics for the 4-year-old for sure. She'll
Yes.
get the
Oh yeah. Yeah. Draw
yeah.
pictures of a ball like she has to be doing a ball. Yeah, for sure.
So I want to ask about a few distinctions here. I'll start with the fundamental question. What are signs that you'd be looking for in a kid where you're seeing they really might need more movement day to day?
I see this often in the kids that I see at some of my classes because the parents have identified that maybe they can't keep up with peers. The movement piece, if they get easily frustrated when doing kind of a simple task, right? Like a jumping jack or walking out of balance, I mean, whatever it is. And they do get easily frustrated because they've never practiced it, right? They've never done a lot of the coordinated the playground time, they're just not active. So I can often tell really early on when the tears flow and they're just so frustrated in themselves, heads down, because now we have no confidence when we're moving our body.
Mm.
Where I would love for them to be like, all right, I'm going to try hopping. And maybe I'm not good at getting 2 times in a row, but I'm going to keep working to get 3, 4, 5 times in a row. So I see those lack of confidence signs very early when I first meet with a child. And the parents will say they have a low tolerance to activity because they want to quit. And it's evident that they probably don't move that much. And they're not used to the struggle, right? As we touched on, they're not used to the failure in movement because they don't do it. So those are signs early on that we got to get after it and we really got to stick with something. Another good thing that I will do with my own kids, and you can put this on your whiteboard. We're going to set a number. You're going to do 10 jumping jacks. At 5, they want to quit. They're having a hard time. Arms and legs are flailing. We're going to reset and we're going to get to 10. So giving them an achievable goal and
Mhm.
then I have them cross it off the list. For that feeling of autonomy, they have a little control too. They feel like they're empowered. Look, I'm able to use the marker. She's letting me do it. But in reality, I'm setting them up for success with the goals that I want them to achieve. But yeah, easily frustrated with movement and that initial, I can't do this, shut down is what I see when kids aren't used to moving a lot.
There's the physical component. You want to see how they're doing in relation to their peers, but more than that, you're going to want to look at temperament. So, and especially too, if you see play should expand on itself and it should compound, it should lead to other play. It should be very open ended. And when there's that quick stopper, there's no edification, then we see that there might be something we need to pay closer attention to. Is there a difference between that and parents who you would recommend, y- aside from very obviously physical diagnoses, that you would want them to get in with a physical therapist?
Yes, I can I often just watch kids interact with other kids, which sometimes my clients, I don't know them in that setting, so I don't get to see it. So one of my first questions to a parent is usually, how do they do when you're at the park with friends? How do they do at recess? Those moments where you're supposed to be free, be a kid, run around, and enjoy moving from place to place, trying hard things, pushing, even just throwing a ball, anything. How do they do? And parents will say to me, they don't often really like recess. They don't like PE, and you can see it at the park too. Well, we go to the park and then they don't really like play on the things. And so that's where for me a sign where like, well, yeah, they don't want to do it because they're not good at it, right? They're not good because they've never exposed their body to it. So naturally, right, when things are hard, we don't really want to do them. But as a parent and as a therapist, my job is to get them to realize you can do this. Often I have to break down the movements. I use the jumping jack. Just, it's easy for me to break down. We got to start with legs going out, legs going out, legs going out, and then we'll work to get the arms. I can't just say do a jumping jack and show them because they can't coordinate that yet. So my job as a therapist is really breaking down the movements. And that's where I feel like my expertise comes into play rather than just a parent who's getting frustrated because why can't my child do a jumping jack? Their older brother can easily do it, or even their younger sibling can easily do it. So some kids, they need things broken down, which is what I do at my bike class, my swim class. These are skills that some of us just jumped on a bike and rode, but other kids just need the movements broken down. So as a therapist, I feel like that's where our profession really comes into play in a pediatric setting. We can show parents, hey, this is a better way to teach this kind of skill. Throwing is a big one. I get a lot of parents who sign their kids up for baseball and it is not going well. And baseball is tough, right? You got to wait your turn, you got to throw it,
Mhm.
and then the ball's by you, and now it's done, and now you're standing. So I get a lot of parents who get easily frustrated. And sometimes the parents are kind of living vicariously through their kid. I played baseball, he should play baseball. Um, but they just need the movements broken down. And as a PT, that's what I really love doing, being able to show them we're not ready for standing and throwing in a target. We got to start with arm up. Where's my body positioned? Because many kids have a hard time even knowing where they are in space. So we get the Phoebe from Friends running,
Mhm.
arms are just crazy and they just have a hard time kind of knowing where their body is. It doesn't mean they can't play varsity basketball, but we need to start without overwhelming them with, you know, do this drill. Like we got to start with where's my right foot at in comparison to my left foot. So I do feel like physical therapists really just have the ability to teach children, in my case, children, but also I'm teaching parents a lot on how to break down movements and set realistic expectations for what their child should be doing because not every kid's the same. As you know, just kids do things at different times. We have a habit, of course, of comparing you with multiples. I know it's hard to not compare them, but normal is a setting on the dishwasher. It comes and goes, it fluctuates. I see kids learn something and then kind of forget it because they haven't done it in a while. So, being with a physical therapist is great because we can break down the movements and then sequence things together to get to the big goal, riding a bike, throwing well. So, I love my job and I do feel like it's a lot to offer to parents. And if you feel like something is going on, I would highly recommend a screening service or some sort of, a lot of PTs, including myself, will do a screening. I'll just hang out with your kid for like 20 minutes. Not a whole lot of structured. I'm just, watching them move and looking at age skills. And then I'll be able to tell you, hey, we may want to do a physical therapy evaluation to dive deeper. Or here's a couple things to work on. Try this and then maybe come back to me in a few months and let's see about the progress. But there's definitely things that physical therapists really excel in. And the biggest thing for me is teaching children different components and then also parents.
It really is therapeutic because if you think about even more when people think of the term therapy, you think about more conventional settings where say people are overwhelmed with organizing their life. And so a good therapist might say, "Can you clean your room?" And then the patient will come back a few weeks later and they haven't been able to touch it. And then they'll start to break it down into these manageable increments. Can you get out of bed at 8 a.m.? Okay, that's accomplished. Can you then make the bed? Right. And so it's so easy to shame ourselves and to get frustrated with kids when things need to be broken down. But for the past 6 years, I've helped build direct demographic care programs for women, especially women with complex family needs. One of those programs being financial coaching. And
Yeah.
so I can't tell you how many times once we broke things down into appropriate steps according to who that client is, according to what they're facing, and according to their history, right? And what they've grown up with, what skills they bring to the table. I can't tell you how many times we get a bit down the road and inevitably a comment they say they apply for a scholarship program and through us, and then they're in school, sometimes graduate school, and they'll say things like, I wish I would have known I could have done this sooner. And I always laugh because I think I've been through times in my life where things had to be broken down for me into manageable increments so I could learn what I needed to about myself to then learn about the next thing about myself. And then you start to teach a kid about their potential. But I can't lecture potential into a kid. We can't. We have to coach them through it
Right.
through co laboring with them. And so it sounds like that's a lot of what this is. You have this expertise safeguard you're bringing into it, and you do a lot of observing, and then it's co-laboring alongside them, but constantly handing off the reins,
Right.
which can be life-changing for a kid.
And I am constantly telling parents too, I may see your child once a week, twice a week for physical therapy, or even in the personal training setting, same thing. I may see you once or twice a week, but the majority of the time they're spent with their parents. And
Mhm.
so the parents have to carry over what I'm doing in the sense of that encouragement, right? Break down the movement and then get them to practice it over and over again, building up that confidence, and then watch them make the progress. When they see the progress, that is the motivation they need to continuing to continue. So I just think movement can really do so much for kids in the sense of self confidence. I see it day in and day out in the pool, in the gym, in my driveway, at bike class. You really just see, especially with the bikes, I see a lot. I mean, the kids' faces just light up. Like it
Yeah.
is a whole new, way of movement for them, a way of mobility. It's just a whole new thing. And once again, they set that goal, they did the work, and now they accomplished it. And like, what more could you want to show your child? And now also, you can do this together as a family. Sometimes I am a little bit of a therapist. Other things come out. The child starts talking about school or their social framework and things that are going on. But all of that comes out because we're moving. And I often think that maybe they already have this, but that therapists, instead of sitting on a couch, they need to be like hiking therapy. Like therapy should be in, on the side of a mountain or even going to a park because you really just get a little more relaxed, but also physiologically, right? Your guard's down, you're just moving along, and now you're talking and you're doing something great for your body. So if this becomes a new thing, let me know and I'll make millions off that. Movement helps in the area of confidence for children. And as much as we can, getting them to engage in child led movement too. If the child wants to try the bike or wants to try soccer or wants to, yes, let's encourage that and help put them in a position to succeed. So that might be you need to kick the ball outside with your kid because when they get to practice, they're going to want to know, hey, how do I kick? How do I trap? You have to help them chase their goals. And you're just going to be there to be their cheerleader, but also like their teammate, helping them, be able to get that confidence so they can go to practice and feel like they're adding to the team and feel like they're able to learn what the other kids are kind of doing. So, parents, everybody's got to be moving too.
My sister is my coach. One of the best things she ever did for me was the summer before I tried out for freshman year field hockey. So this was not the little rec leagues I was a part of
Yes.
in grade school. This was the first time I really had to make a team that had real cuts on it. She worked with me that entire summer and it changed me so much as a person. I was in such grief that year. We had lost my grandmother who I was so close with. She had lived with us my whole life. I started that summer embarrassingly. I will never forget it with a 10:33 mile. And I will never forget her just working with me, even when she was beating me in sprints and she was 7 months pregnant,
Yeah.
until she didn't. and walked in that fall a lot more confident, made the team, start team captain the next year. It changed me. I went from being the left-handed awkward kid who was picked last in kickball to going and playing a sport that it's only right-handed, field hockey is. And it changed so much for me. And so I love that summer as a catalyst for change. We go back to that sandlot phenomenon, right? That
Mhm.
summer, that catalyst for change for kids. And it can be an incredible time for growth. So when they hit the playground on the first day of school, when they hit tryouts, when they hit flag football practice or soccer or whatever it is, they're ready. They're ready. They're ready to be with their friends. They're ready to try something hard. Like you said, you
Yeah.
can do hard things. I don't think there's any better motto, any better building ground for sports other than just that. So tell our listeners where they can find you if they want to learn more.
You can find me through my website, Simply Strong PT, simplystrong-pt.com. And then I am in the Lake Norman area, and I have a Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, all those social media things as well. And if you have any interest in swim lessons, bike, I do group fitness classes for kids, which is one of my other favorite things to do. It's not so much, hey, you got to do this ladder drill, you got to go here, go there. It's more of at the end of the class, I call it sandlot time. I put them in teams and I'm like, all right, we're playing today's baseball. Yesterday I did soccer at my class. Figure it out. So where are we going? Who's up first? Like giving them a little autonomy to do it themselves, which socially I think is so great for kids. I'm in the Lake Norman area and yeah, am happy to help anybody looking for some guidance as far as getting their kids to be more active. And then the big swimming and biking things that are coming up this summer, it's time to look into those. And yeah, just help your kid realize they have the potential to be strong, to be confident in the way that they move, which will translate into so many other things. So, yes, please get in touch with me.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
On Rebranding Motherhood, we talk about the lie that motherhood is a trap, and that if you are in a situation where you need support, then no one will be there to help you or to be a steady voice for you. I want to talk to you about our project Loveline that decimates that lie and helps women get real help in real time. We connect women with resources, or if we can't find one, we become the resource. So if you, someone you know, needs to access our hotline, you can visit us at loveline.com. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to be that steady voice in someone's life, we would love to talk to you about your heart for helping mothers. Thank you.